Hello and welcome to a slightly unusual budget model railways video because Brexit notwithstanding, we've gone all European and Continental. A number of you will know that I've always had a bit of interest and I've slowly been acquiring HO generic diesels and rolling stock. And I decided I couldn't wait anymore after my recent purchases of Locos to have something to at least run a bit of shunting on and some of my wagons. So here we go. Now I must give a big thanks to Continental Modeler because it's reading that over the years. It's given me a whole feel for this sort of Continental look. And an article in there is what solved it for me. Basically, because of the different way of doing platforms on the continent, you can use this line here as the goods line and still have a passenger line, ideally with 3 lines, but I haven't got room for 3, so I've done 2. So the big difference you can see, the look is very different. So instead of the usual grey or black, we have a sand coloured ballast mat. That's a Javis one that I got quite cheaply. It's quite granular and it looks really nice and gives us straight away that different European Continental look. I've then got lower platforms. So this was a bit of history here, but particularly the Brits built very tall platforms, was actually one of the problems. In Europe, it's much more low level and you can walk across the line. So in fact, it was an article I read that explained that this line wouldn't actually have been where the passenger trains stop. So in the UK, you'd stop in the station. You would use this and the passengers cross to the low level island and would then get on and off coaches there. So that's the idea of that. That changes the look. That means I can have a little goods shed, which again is quite prototypical. These buildings were all, that was cut off a base, that was cut off a different base. I've put in just an ordinary storage siding, which will allow me to do more complicated shunting moves. And up the other end, if I just move the wagons here, we've got a loading dock and a gantry crane. Now all these bits were bought second-hand at shows and Classic Rail and online, a few pound each. Most of them I've worked emulsion paint in and then wiped it off to show the pointing. I've weathered the gantry crane. We've got a little hut there, car park. The buildings are the same, so I've done a bit of weathering to take the plastic look off of them. And the platform surface is a sheet that I got from Classic Rail. And again, I haven't painted it. What I've done is just worked emulsion in and then wiped it off. And that's given me the sort of flagstone look. So I'm not basing this isn't supposed to be Italy or Germany or France or anywhere. It's a European layout. The idea is then I can run whatever I like on it. I was rather pleased with my signal cabin. I've no idea whether that really is. It's a little building that I got down at the something show for about £2. It's been beautifully painted and I've decided that that will make a great little signal cabin. And then over the back here, we'll have a little bit of grassed area with some trees. I'm going to use a lot of static grass around it to give it I saw a wonderful article in Continental Modeler once showing, I think it was Poland, with lots of long grass everywhere. So as you can see, a very different look to the usual thing we do. Lots of shunting potential because of the sidings. I've got a few Continental vehicles there. I'm going to have quite a bit of fun with this, I think, and it's not going to take me very long to build or cost me very much money. I should think the buildings and things there have cost me about £6 so far. So that thrown in with some cheap Locos and generic rolling stock. So these are actually Mahano coaches that came in their train sets, but painted up, they look very good. And I've got about half a dozen of them. I've got Lima's generic coach, rather a nice one there with the gold lining on. I've got a couple of them and I've got about half a dozen various Locos. You saw in the last video recently the UK one that will be repainted. I've also got the American switcher and I've got a couple of these Bobos. These are the Mahano ones, very basic but with a bit of work. They run very nicely, bit of a repaint, and I'll come up with a colour scheme for my own railway. And then I'll also be able to run, I've got about half a dozen Italian wagons and I've got 2 really nice Italian diesels. And I'll use them on here. The idea being, I guess this is somewhere in the Balkans. So we've got all sorts of, you know, Yugoslav and Italian and whatever railways all coming together. But it'll just give me a nice little layout to run some shunting on. Power is really simple. Douglas soldered 2 wires on the end there for me. And at the other end, very neat bit of soldering on Doug's part. At the other end, we'll have a fiddle yard. So down this end, I'll do my normal standard piece of fiddle yard, and we'll just put a couple of track connectors. We need those because of this siding, which would be dead if we didn't do that, because they're insulating points. So the points are all second hand. So there's 4 points there, so it's not too heavy, about £10 worth of points. But by the time it's got the grass and everything on it and plastic buildings instead of cardboard, it'll have quite a different look to what we normally do. So it won't be for everybody, but I think it is a good way of showing yet again that because these models are generic and they don't go for very much money, you can have yourself a great little model railway. This is going to have a very different look. Have a bit of fun with this. Yeah, I've been threatening to do this for a couple of years, so I'm quite pleased with it. So I'd really like to know what you think, and we'll hopefully in a few weeks' time do an update where we've got back scenes on and grass and everything. But this is definitely one that's going to get finished. This is not going to be a half-finished project like a few of ours are. So there we go. Something a little bit different for the weekend for you. As always, thank you for liking, watching, commenting, subscribing, and generally supporting us what we do in Budget Model Railways. Hi, thanks for watching the video and for the nice comments. Click on the left for a previous video in this series. Click on the right for another video you might enjoy. And please don't forget to click to subscribe, like, comment, etc. Thanks again.